Perfect. I guess we can maybe kick it off. So hope you can hear me well. Hope you can also are now enabled to text on the chat. I think now it should be working. So welcome everyone to today's session. It's a pleasure to have this kickoff event for the Global Alumni Week all together with the title of Intertwining Impact and Purpose and Changing the Way We Think and Act. So careers of today, just to have a little bit of a quick introduction, are often intertwined with the impact, but the real question is where does purpose play a role in our careers? So we'll dive into this topic with our CEMS Alumni of the Year 2022 awardees and discover how impact has given them a clear plan for translating purpose into actions within their career. And questions as such as, are you purpose-driven or impact-driven? What makes one change the way we think and act? And finally, incorporating impact and purpose in one's work today has allowed many to aspire and inspire. But how does one understand the larger goal of our day-to-day efforts, whether it's personal or professional? So we're going to hear from our three CEMS alumni who have been there and who have been asked and struggled with these very questions. So just quickly, a few housekeeping rules. Of course, you're muted. In any case, you can raise your hand. You can, in the end, also ask to be unmuted to be able to ask a few questions. But please feel free in the meantime to type in the box chat and to ask all the questions there. We will try to address everything. So now I think it's the right moment to also introduce our amazing speakers and guests. First and foremost, Johanna Rastad. She is a SSC and a RSM alumna, class of 2005, and she's currently the president and CEO of Humana, a Swedish company operating in the healthcare and care services sector. Then we have Erna Kindli from Corvinus University of Budapest and HSC, class of 2001, and she's currently the CEO of the Bator Tabor Foundation, an amazing organization that we will see later what operates in a little bit more specifically. And finally, we have our junior alumni of the year awardee, Kate Zhuza, from Prague and Nova, class of 2019. Who is also who's right now working in risk prevention at Meta, but she's the co-founder of an amazing NGO known as the Union of Help to Kherson. So welcome everyone, and we can maybe already start with the questions. Thank you so much for being here. Johanna, we'll start with you. So if you want to quickly introduce yourself, and then my first question would be, when and why did the passion for the field in which you're currently working in arise?
Well, thank you very much, and thank you for the previous introduction. It's really nice to be here. It's nice to be in this community that really sort of set the scene for not only my sort of professional career, but also actually my personal life with a lot of friends during the way. So thanks a lot for that. Well, the passion for the field, I practically grew up at the hospital. Both my parents are doctors. They've been working for the public sector their whole lives, more or less. And my parents didn't allow me to become a doctor because I thought that was my purpose in life. But I really wanted to help people, and I also wanted to work in an environment that is for real, that is not just something untangible out there. I want to work with hands and feet. And then I would say I realized fairly quickly that I had some sort of brain power. I was relatively good at maths, and I guess also what I think is really important if you want to have real sort of impact is that you need to be interested in people. You need to be interested in understanding what people want, where society is heading, and how it all sort of fits together. And it's we were talking about that earlier. It's nice to want to create impact, but you have to understand the system in order to really be able to create impact. So I think I understood that fairly quickly, and now I ended up sort of leading a healthcare and care operations which is sort of making impact in one way. But that's not how my sort of career started. It really started in the finance sector and trying to just understand, the system of money and capital, which is a lot sort of steering society, whether we want it or not. So background in a hospital context, but probably being good at maths and so on, sort of driving me into this path.
Thank you so much, Johanna. Amazing, honestly, amazing to know how you can be able to redirect life and career, like after also an amazing program as CEMS and the versatility that you get. Just a quick date. Now the chat has been enabled. Thank you for all the ones signaling about this problem. So now you should be able to write in the chat. And thank you again, Johanna, for the amazing introduction. Now switching to Erna. What do you think are the key drivers that pushed you to pursue a career in a non-profit company, in a non-profit organization?
Yeah, thank you. And hello, everyone. Thanks for inviting me and for this whole discussion. Similar to Johanna, I think my story also goes back to my childhood. I grew up in a family of teachers and healthcare professionals. Which in Eastern Europe is like very critically underpaid sector, both of them. And because of this, my family never really had money. And I think these two things are important equally, because the kind of role models that I saw, what their profession meant to my family member, definitely influenced like how I think about my work. And when I think about my work, I've always thought about like impact in a certain way, and usually like positive social impact was something that I looked for. And the fact that we never really had good financial conditions as a family, I think gave me a lot of mental strength and also like ambition to push a bit further. And this is probably why I went to University of Economics, where I really enjoyed like understanding the bigger picture, macroeconomics, and so on. So I never really thought about like pursuing a career in pedagogy or healthcare, and probably not so much because they are underpaid things, but maybe also that played a role. But more importantly, I was like always interested in a bigger picture. So I never really saw myself like doing one-on-one like educational or healthcare jobs like my family did, because I wanted to see the big picture, but in a similar setting. And I guess I was really lucky because I also didn't start my career here, but I was very lucky to be hired by Google straight from the university, and I was given super interesting international roles, mostly in global strategy. I lived in London for several years, and when I was 29, I really started to ask myself, like, am I doing enough? Am I putting enough skin in the game? And even though also at Google I could find like parts of my jobs that I could tell myself are generating positive social impact, like I felt that this wasn't enough, that I could do more, and that's how I ended up leading the biggest nonprofit organization of my home country, Hungary, which is this Bátor Tábor Foundation that you mentioned. It's a 70 people organization, a really big love brand in Hungary, extending to Slovakia, Czechia, and Poland. We work for the mental health of children who have been traumatized by illness or war or you name it, like critical life situations.
Thank you so much, Erna. Like it sounds amazing. When I also read a little bit more of what you do, I was really impressed. So thank you so much for for being here today and for inspiring us as well, together with Kate and Johanna. And now maybe also Kate, if you wanna introduce yourself and maybe also please like tell us a little bit about like the Union of Help to Kherson and how like that become the purpose in your work today.
Hi, everyone. Thank you very much for having me and for all the amazing support this community has given ever since I joined the CEMS. So as Carlo introduced me in the beginning, I'm Kate, an alumni from Prague and Nova. I am Ukrainian myself originally, and right now I work in my corporate job at Meta, but on the side I run an NGO in Ukraine, which is called Union of Help to Kherson. As to how that became my purpose, that happened very fast. So just as the ladies have mentioned, Johanna and both Erna, your purpose forms early on in your life. And I think for me, during my CEMS years, one of the big things that I've realized was that I wanted to work in something that had community impact. And that's what has sector and working on protecting communities. Little did I know that just over 2 years since I joined Meta, a full-scale invasion in Ukraine would happen. And once that happened, I realized a few things. And the first thing was that I am safe and I have a lot of opportunities and resources and network in order to make a difference. So that's what I have started doing early on. I was fundraising money for Ukraine altogether, but then I started specifically focusing on Kherson, which is my native region in the south of Ukraine. If any of you follow the war on Twitter, and I know many of the CEMSs have, Kherson has been occupied since day one. And it is a quite big region of Ukraine, and I come from Nova Kakhovka. And so throughout the beginning of war, I was fundraising and sponsoring volunteers on the ground who would buy food, medication, who would evacuate people, who would help people who lost their jobs or have suffered from occupation and aggression. And now, since Kherson was liberated in November, still more than 70% of the region remains occupied. So my work spans across supporting non-occupied territory that is constantly being shelled, as well as people in occupation. So the way it became my purpose, as I mentioned, was quite fast. Like I always say that, you know, in your CEMS years, you learn kind of the conventional ways of starting a company and writing a project, a brief, and then making slides and, you know, all of these things. And in real life, everything happens a lot faster and a lot more unpredictable. At one point, you're fundraising money, another point, you're like, okay, wait, this is a lot of money that's flowing in. We've got to start a company, we've got to start something. So that's how we established our NGO and have been operating on the ground. I think it gave me a lot of sense in terms of the skills you gain throughout your life. You realize that then you can apply them in various settings. And for me, the main driver has been, if I have all the skills and the network and the resources and the education behind me, I can turn that into positive impact for the world and not only for, say, company shareholders. So that has been my biggest driver. And also, obviously, besides wanting to help my country to win the war and to prevail the aggression. So that's a little bit about myself and Union of Help to Kherson.
Thank you so much, Kate. Like really this latter concept that you highlighted, right? Like turning the knowledge, education, the network, what we gain, and turning it into, you know, like into action and making use of it, especially by adapting to what are today's VUCA situations, the so-called VUCA situations. So thank you so much. Also, these I think give a lot of, you know, inspiration to young students that nowadays they struggle to maybe see effectively where they can, you know, act and how they can put into practice what they learn and what they, let's say, gather during their academic experience. So maybe we can, before jumping to the next questions, we can go quickly to a point raised by Diana. Thank you so much. And on the concept that Johanna was discussing about understanding how the system works in order to make use of it or even interact with it. And so the question to Johanna, but also to other speakers, would be: what helped you personally to stay constructive and not fall into the negative mindset once you realized all the pitfalls of the system? You know, face corporate greed and ultimate disbalance of power and opportunities. So Johanna, maybe you wanna
Yeah,
start?
it's a really good question, and actually I've thought about that quite a lot over the years. I mean, if you have roles that are highly exposed, you are exposed from a professional point of view, but also personally. And I think for me, at least, it's been about sort of maintaining my energy levels. And maybe that's a bit, fluffy, but I profoundly believe that if you do things right with a good intention, you will win. And with that I mean that you have to believe that greed won't be the successful way of doing things. And even if you are placed on a label, or if someone puts you in a certain corner, you still have your compass that is guiding you. Because that's when the wind is blowing around you, you have to be able to stick and hold on to something that is not directed to the particular issue as such, but rather to your belief in what's right. So like sticking to my compass, not twisting and turning based on what people think and what people say about you. That's an important thing. And I also think at least in my professional career, it's been times when it's been, you're just tagging along with your job, and it's not that much happening, but it's it's a nice place to be in. But you have to, when it gets tough, you have to be able to structuralize rather than personalize. So look at the structure, look at the system, look at the broader picture rather than you as an individual. Because once you start to personalize things, that's when you take on whatever it might be, guilt because something went wrong, etc. And that's not constructive. You have to look at the broader picture and see sort of solutions rather than all the problems you have around you. And maybe a fluffy answer to your question, but I really think it's about your compass and maintaining energy throughout good and bad times.
Thank you, Johanna. Erna, you wanna quickly jump in on this?
I agree with what was said. I think it's very important to focus on your internal compass and what you're trying to do. And personally, I try to limit, for example, reading news whatsoever. So it's just an example of you need to take care of your own mental well-being and your own motivation. And if you just spend too much time with things that are outside of your control zone, then you will become clearly suicidal. And you probably read about Hungary in the news a lot, not very positive ones. So you can imagine if I was really spending all my time digesting information about what is going in a bad direction, then I would want to leave the country immediately. So instead, what I focus on is my circle of influence and what I can do to do something positive.
Thank you, Erna. Kate, I see your hand raised.
Yeah, I wanted to jump in and actually combine this with another question that was asked in the chat about this feeling of when you're jumping from one presentation to another, one exam to another, and it's hard to kind of understand what are even your values. So I just want to say that this is perfectly fine, right? I don't want to give an impression, and I think I speak for Johanna and Erna here as well, of like, you know, everyone has it figured out, or like this one morning you wake up and you're like, these are my values, and then you go and you do them. It's natural that at certain points in your life you're more kind of head down and focusing on what really matters, and that might be an exam or landing that next internship. And so it's totally fine to not have everything perfectly figured out. And that's probably my biggest lesson, is that you can't have everything perfectly figured out. But what you can try to do is, while you're navigating all these rough seas and exams and internships and recession that now we're in, is thinking, what is it that I really like? And it's almost like, just maybe like, I don't know, once in like 3 or 4 months, to just stop and be like, in the last 4 months, what have I really enjoyed? What was that one project where I really felt like I was energized by it? Or if I had an internship and I didn't like it, what is it that I didn't like? And just a little bit reflecting on that. And I think reflecting on that actively will lead you to shape your values. And then, to the point Johanna made of, then once you kind of know what matters to you, then you stick to it. You know, you go to a place, and I remember for me that was like, I was doing an internship at an FMCG company, and one thing that really quickly jumped on me is I realized we're doing a lot of projects on sustainability, as that was just like really buzzy in 2017 or 18. But at the same time, I saw on the floor we had hundreds of bottles of shampoo and conditioner that they were just like shipping in for testing, that would just stand there for months. And I remember being so annoyed by it. And that was something that I just kind of kept pushing there on the place, because that's something that I figured out mattered a lot to me. So I think it's just taking some time to reflect on what you like, what you don't like, what matters to you, and what makes you click. And that will start to be and to form as your compass. I see Erna's hand up, so I give over to Erna.
Yeah, just as you spoke about like good questions to ask ourselves, it reminded me of one question that really changed my life when I asked it myself. And I don't know why I asked it. Maybe I shouldn't have, but but I did around when I was like 29 or something. I think I saw a movie or something, and I asked myself, okay, let's imagine I'm 80 years old and I look back. What would make me satisfied? Is this lifestyle or this direction that I'm going into, like, is what I would be proud of, or like I would feel a contentment, a satisfaction when I look back into it? And I think this is a super useful question, and you gotta be honest with yourself. And it's not just about career, obviously, but it has many implications on your private life. But it's a good question to kind of redesign your life, and it's a harsh question too, because it's when you realize that our time here is limited, so we gotta make use of it. So when you're in the moment, it's a good question too.
Kate, you want to jump in?
Yeah, I just want to quickly jump in. As Erna was speaking, we're clearly getting like the synergies here about the questions to ask. I think another thing that has really helped me, especially early in my career after graduation, when there's so much buzz around you, various people are telling you various things. They're telling you to go into this industry or the other industry, to live your life this way or another way. One thing that has helped me ground myself is asking, which people do I listen to? Whose advice do I want to be taking? And I decide that based on, when I look at that person, does that person live the life I want to live? Like Erna mentioned, is that someone that, like, if you live that life, you would look back at it at the end of your life, you'd be like, that was a very life that would make me feel satisfied. So just asking yourself, who is it you want to take advice on, and how you want to live your life. I think that has been really helpful in kind of grounding yourself and finding that inner compass.
Great. Thank you so much, Kate. We also have another very, very interesting question in the chat box about like the, this skill or the skill set, let's say, that for you that you think would be fundamental to build on and to develop in order to, master this ability to make impact? Maybe we can connect this question to like the individual questions that we are gonna ask you now. So maybe Johanna, I would start with you again, and I would ask you, where does the social sustainability aspect encounter the greatest impact? Is it mostly the employees that are treated differently or better, or do the patient benefit the most from this? And how would you say that, like, what would you say the skills to to encounter the greatest impact would be?
Well, I believe if you really want to make impact, you have to look at the whole ecosystem. So from in my perspective, it's both the caregivers, the caretakers, the funds available, sort of how the service offering looks like, etc. I mean, that's the real challenge if you want to have a broad impact. It's a fact that more people are in need of help from fewer people with less resources. So that's an equation that's tricky if you don't get the fundamental change of the whole system. And of course, there are a few solutions. We talk about digitalization, precision, diagnostics, prevention, etc. But it's still a fact that you have to constantly improve and adapt the system in order to create impact for many people. So that's where I think we can create the largest impact. And while doing so, I mean, we are in an environment that's constantly changing, and as individuals, we're also constantly changing. And I think if I have to list one skill or attribute that I believe is vital, is the curiosity. You have to be interested in understanding what's going on, and also be passionate about making something about the things that you see. So curiosity, I think, is key.
Thank you so much. Okay, curiosity at the center. I think it's a very, a very fundamental point, like also challenging, asking ourselves, why are we doing this? Is it because like I really want to do this, or we really need to do it, or because like we're, brought by society or by external factors to do it, as Kate was mentioning before.
And I will also say there, I think you have to understand sort of where am I situated in this? I mean, we can't all change the system, and we can't all make impact on every level. And I think, just making impact in your context is making impact that too, even if it's, I don't know, providing some sort of fundamental aspect for your child, or making sure your mother-in-law gets a good, bed somewhere to spend her last years, etc. So you can always make impact. And I think it depends on where you are placed in the system, and also your attributes. Because if you want to change the whole system and you really don't feel this is my place of being, it's not going to end up being good. It's not going to end up being fruitful and worthwhile doing when you look back. So it's I think from a career perspective, it's not only understanding your position or the company or the NGO or whatever it is you're working in and the fundamentals around it, but also yourself, understanding where am I in this, and what's going to be good, and what can I feel passionate about, and where will I not go under making change.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Johanna. Erna, maybe I'll jump with you now. How is managing a nonprofit similar yet different from managing a for-profit organization? And then again, like the question of the skill, what would you recommend as the skill to make impact?
Okay. So addressing the skill first, because it connects to what Johanna said. I also started thinking about, okay, the world is constantly changing, etc., etc. But I wrote down flexibility, which comes from the same root as Johanna's argumentation. But I think in this world, it's like number one priority or number one skills that you just have to be flexible because your context is always changing. And, right now, this is what I'm doing, this foundation, and Kate is doing what she's doing, and Johanna is doing what she's doing. But I'm not sure it's our last gig. You know what I mean? So maybe things will change, and we might see new opportunity to have impact. So flexibility is key. In terms of your other question, like nonprofit and for-profit management, from a management perspective, I think it's very similar. It's an organization that you need to manage. So you need to think about resources and objectives and the positioning in the market, revenues and costs, employees' motivation, and so on and so on. So like what we learned in the CEMS curriculum very much from that perspective. The difference, though, there are a couple of differences, and one is that, you know, many people think or are a bit confused by the notion of a nonprofit, because it's called a non-profit, but actually there are very important financial metrics that you need to pay attention to, just like in a business environment. One goal is to make profit, some financial earnings, so more revenue than costs in a given time period. And so this is, again, like very similar to how we manage a budget as a for-profit organization. The only real difference is that here there are no stakeholders or stakeholders there are, but shareholders there aren't. And therefore this profit that is being made and is crucial for a sustainable operation is not paid out to like any rich guy out there who already is rich anyways, but is used for the cause, reinvested in the cause, or added to the financial reserves that again contribute to the financial sustainability of the organization and the social or environmental cause that it's addressing. So this is the number one big difference, and the fact that it's a non-profit doesn't mean that it should generate some profit. Just the purpose of this profit is very, very different than in a business setting. I think the other important difference is that the revenue generation model is kind of indirect. So in a business organization, you take a product or service, you bring it to a market, and someone buys it, uses it, and pays for it. In a nonprofit organization, it's much more indirect, therefore more complicated and a bit harder to control as well. So you create a service or a product, you bring it to somebody who's in need, and you don't ask for money. And then you go to somebody else and you are asking for money, and you tell them all the great things that you're doing. So this, I think, is a pain point. It's in the system. That's how it works. But I think this is what makes like a nonprofit organization is sometimes like more challenging to step from one level to another. This kind of indirect revenue model that is very hard to navigate and also like costly a little bit to maintain. So that's the difference, I think.
Thank you so much, Erna. Kate, then we already mentioned the skills, but like this is perfect for the questions that we have for you, which would be how skills gained in CEMS can be used in NGO work or during humanitarian crisis, and how do leaders show up during difficult times such as war?
Thank you, Carlo. Yeah, that's a great question, and thank you, folks, for all the questions coming in. We see them, and it's really just insightful to see what's top of mind for both students and alumni. In terms of the questions of what skills are from CEMS are applicable in humanitarian crisis, in war, and NGOs, building on what the ladies already mentioned, I would say networking has been key. For me, that's been convincing people that we are a good organization, we're trusted. convincing people to load shipments on a train without knowing if that train will ever make its way through Ukraine and if we're going to receive what they're sending. So it's a lot of networking and a lot of stakeholder management. Then being comfortable building kind of minimum value products and just kind of minimum viable products and kind of running fast, because the truth is, and this is addressing some of the questions that came in, is you don't really know what to do and you're like, oh, I need to make this big impact, I need to make this big change. But then in real life, just making those little pivotal moments and moving fast to make something good happen, that's what matters. So having, seeing that one thing that you can do and moving on that instead of worrying about building that one perfect, very impactful thing. So this has been true, and especially during war times, because again, I might be doing something this week, like buying electricity generators because all of the infrastructure is being destroyed. And then 2 weeks later, Russia has run out of those missiles and Ukraine has rebuilt the infrastructure, and electricity is everywhere now. Now we have 10 generators. And just being kind of able to move fast and adjust to the situation on the ground. And that's to the point of flexibility that Erna made. And then I think one of the biggest skills that CEMS has taught me that I've applied during war and also in my corporate life is bringing people together and driving them forward. This is the one skill that I would say is really valuable. And at CEMS, we're lucky to study with a lot of people who have that skill. And the truth is that out there in the world, it's not that many people who are able to do that. So I think taking stock of having that skill of bringing a team together, quickly running a project, moving everyone forward, this is a really valuable skill in life. And that's something that AI and ChatGPT is not going to ever substitute. And so I think this is the one thing that we should index on and also take care of and factor in. And then another question that I saw there was, oh, sorry, my light went out here, about service design and service design and having the difficult choice of maybe I could have more money and maybe I could have a job that allows me to travel and have better life quality. I think that, again, the key here is your compass. And I see that the person who typed the question said that they have a passion for creativity and people. So it seems like you have your compass kind of almost figured out or on the way of being figured out. So I would anchor myself in that and just understand that everything in life has its trade-offs. You can't be running a very impactful NGO on the ground helping people and at the same time fly to Dubai every week. Or maybe you can, but that would be difficult to combine. Or, you can't be working for like a service design and at the same time, redesign kind of like a big bank and make profit for them. So it's just various trade-offs that you need to be okay with accepting and being like, I am doing that and that's what matters to me at this point. And then also not taking it too seriously. Like Erna mentioned, yes, we're doing that right now. In 10 years, we might be doing something else. So not focusing on figuring out this whole life and all of your future jobs and all of your future skills and values, but just taking it one step at a time. I think this is really something valuable that we can do to keep us moving.
Thank you so much, Kate. Maybe Erna, would you like to jump into questions on how to try to balance, let's say, a full-time regular job and then running NGOs, family commitments, hobbies? How do you do it? What is your formula?
It's a very important question, so thank you for this. Because there are so many things in life that you just need to do and you want to do because they are important. I have a husband who is a full-time job himself because he's a cycling enthusiast and we always have to go to all kinds of places related to cycling. And I think the key to this is planning, and even like planning for your hobbies and putting it into your calendar and just making time for it, like every morning, every week, every month on different levels. Just do a little bit of reflection. I don't think I have better answer than just really planning and being conscious about it. So trying to be like, today it's so easy to go through a day in a reactive mode. You know, I can just sit in front of my computer, for sure, like messages will be coming in and I could spend all my day basically like replying to them. But you need to like draw some boundaries and make some spaces in your day and week and month for the different things that you want to be addressing, in my opinion.
Thank you so much. I think it's
I can actually also jump in there a bit on that question too. I mean, this is it's a question that's really close to my heart. I mean, I have 4 kids. I've got I'm a wife, I'm a mom, I'm a CEO, I am, a daughter, and I'm everything at the same time. And I think, that's it is a true challenge, and don't expect anything else, because that's the way it is. And it's not so much about what all other people expect, but what you expect from yourself, and being sufficient in all these roles, and what is sufficient, and what's, where do you place your boundaries, and also what do you expect? You don't expect to have a high degree social life if you want to have 4 kids and work a lot, have a demanding job, because it's 24 hours a day, and nothing will be fun if you have too much. So I think what you're into, Erna, like planning, like logistics, is vital to keep it working. Have good support structures around you, and reduce your expectations. Like, you can't cook homemade food for your kids every day. It's not going to work. It's going to be meatballs from the grocery store and pasta. That's it. And that's going to be every single Thursday. It's the same. But everyone knows that that's what's going to be served in this place, and it's not going to be those homemade 5-hour stews. So it requires a lot from you, I think. And someone said, a really clever woman who had really challenging situation with a child of hers, and she said, it's all about expectations. It's the expectation gap is generally what sort of crushes you in the end. And your expectation of how your future as leading this company will be like, and how your life with your husband or wife will be, etc. So don't have too high expectations, because all of a sudden you'll be surprised that actually today there were no logistics errors. I expected them to be there, but they weren't there. So it's a good day. So yeah, it's really close to my heart, because I think that is a challenge if you want to be in many places and do a lot and achieve a lot in different places, so you can manage along the way. So sorry for jumping in.
No, absolutely. Thank you so much. I think it's really, really valuable advice, especially for us, young students about to enter the adults world with the job, and then you also have side interests, and you're asking yourself, okay, what do I want to do, and will I have time to to go visit my family? Will I have time to also keep playing tennis?
Yeah.
So it's absolutely precious advice. Maybe before answering to a few other questions from the chat box, I would like to take the opportunity, since today we have like 3 amazing ladies with us in the webinar today, and I would like to ask you, what have been the biggest challenges that you have had to overcome, related maybe to your gender specifically, and especially if you think that the role of women leader has been changing throughout the last few years. Maybe Johanna, you want to go back on this directly?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I've worked in both male-dominated industries like investment banking and private equity, but also female-dominated industries like healthcare and care sectors. And it's slightly different dynamics, I think, and different communities that you also have to understand and to some degree adapt to in order to work your way through, not accepting things that you really don't like. But it's a lot about trying to understand the infrastructure that you're surrounded with. And I see being a female in a male-dominated world is of course not always easy, but it's also not easy for male in female-dominated worlds and etc. So I think my challenge has been what we mostly talked about in the previous question, like combining the roles that I am after. I have not been I haven't accepted to compromise, either do one or do the other, and I being through like giving birth and being pregnant and all of that, it's a fact that from a biological point of view, you're carrying the child. So, and we are the ones generally sort of either, maybe you breastfeed or you don't, but it's a fact that it's a time in your life where you focus on other things. And I think it's the same for men, that become dads. And I think sometimes it's more difficult for men that want to have, be present in their children's life still. We don't want to believe that, but that's still a fact that in many industries, it's still not accepted for men to stay home with their kids, for instance. So it's been, I've been working in industries and in environments where sometimes it's been very accepted and in others it hasn't. I still think combining the roles as a present parent and being active in senior positions or challenging positions, that's the most challenging bit. And I think that goes for both genders. And at the same time, it's I think the like finding breathing space in that is an important aspect too, irrespective of you being a man or a woman. And then you have to again think about what's the core. I really think a mix is the best. I think you need to have capacities, not gender being one, but we can see far further along than just gender being, having different experiences being a really important aspect. I think if you want what we've been talking about, creating impact, you have to have input from different perspectives, and that comes with experience and background and so on. So that goes back to the core, I think.
Absolutely.
It's a long answer to your question. Sorry.
No, absolutely insightful. Very insightful also, I would say. So thank you so much, Johanna, for be sharing this with us. Maybe Erna and Kate, do you want to quickly also jump in on this?
On the gender, I also worked a lot in software sector, like 9 years, which is a very male-dominated industry, obviously. And after Google, I was part of a startup management where I was the only female out of the 6 management members. And what I learned on this journey is that as a woman, even if you are in a male-dominated area, don't try to become a man, because there are so many valuable skills or way of prioritization is very often different than how a group of men would prioritize things in a management meeting, let's say. What I found is it's important to remain a woman with and I don't think that all women are the same, so I'm not trying to create stereotypes here, but we think differently usually, not always, not everyone, but it's still hard. So it was sad that the role of women leaders are changing. I still feel that it's very hard to be taken as seriously as a man. So I'm leading this nonprofit organization now, which has been founded 20 years ago, and it's a very well-known organization. All the previous CEOs were 40-something men, everybody. Even though you would think like an NGO for children would be like a female-driven organization, but even here, like every leader before me were like middle-aged men. And it's still, I feel that it's still hard as a woman, even in a like a soft sector than an NGO. It's not the same as if I were a man.
All right. Thank you so much for sharing. And Kate, you want to have a brief comment on this as well?
Yeah, I mean, I agree with what the ladies said. I think it's just finding what is it that you bring to the table. You don't have to have skills of a man or even of a different person. You are who you are. In terms of how the impact of women is changing, I mean, we have seen it growing over the years, but I just read a really alarming report yesterday that since COVID times, we've seen a record number of women leave workplace because of various competing duties and families. And so it is an alarming trend in a way that we're seeing less women coming to workplace and less women at mid and senior positions. So that is something that we need to be pushing on and making sure that we are speaking up for each other, that we are each other's allies. And whenever we see in a workplace that there's not equal opportunities being granted, we are there and we're speaking up. Many questions today have been about like triggering a big change, having a big impact. I would say let's focus on those little moments of supporting each other when we can, and that's like little step by step. We're gonna move forward both women equality as well as the impact in the world.
Thank you so much, Kate. Super precious. And I would then have a last question for the three of you, a very quick one, an easy one, but also very fundamental for us students, which would be each of you as an international leader in the field in which you work, probably will have one piece of advice in one sentence to us, like young students and alumni who are in a very delicate moment where, you know, about to choose our first jobs or very early steps in our career. Johanna, what would be your intake on this?
Yeah, that's a really that's an interesting. I actually thought about it. I wonder what is this? I mean, I really think it's during the tough times that I've been through. That's generally a trigger. That's where I also think impact is made. It's when you end up in situations that are really challenging, or it might not only be just a personal aspect, but I think the personal experiences have really marked me. But you know, and I guess that comes into moving to new countries. That's been on the positive side. You know, just spending semesters abroad was really, you know, key points for me. Meeting all these people that have really made impact on me, on not only so professional choices, but also personally, people I surround myself with. So spending time with other people has been, you know, times that has been sort of defined my career in that sense. And the tough times, those are the ones that really, you know, they put pressure on you, and then it really gives you challenges. So that's what really have made marks.
Thank you so much. Thank you. Erna.
My advice is to try as many things as you can in terms of job format, organization type, and even like functional area. And you will see like what works for you. As Kate said earlier, there are always trade-offs in every kind of job, and you will see like what works for you, and you will learn a lot about yourself. And all kinds of job has some really good added value, and maybe you will only see it in retrospect, but they all add something to your journey, something important.
Thank you so much. Kate.
Yeah, I think what Erna mentioned resonates with me is just trying many various things and exploring yourself, and not focusing on figuring out that perfect path or finding that perfect internship or being upset that someone has and you haven't, because we have a very long career ahead of us, with like 40 years till our retirement or more. So just looking at all of it as a consecutive steps and a journey where we're growing, And, you know, like focusing more on what do I really like? What kind of work do I enjoy? Which people do I like working with? What kind of projects I have worked on where I was like waking up every morning and being excited. I think focusing on that rather than landing the perfect things is what will keep you moving and let you find the best opportunities for yourself.
Thank you so much. Johanna, before we give a couple of important announcements, would you like to comment?
Yes,
also
I
what has
just
been
want
said?
one final thing. I think there's so many people that, you know, they're out there watching. You know, they watch, they have a lot of ideas and you know, complaints about how things are working, but, you know, please get in there and try to fix it yourself, because otherwise, you know, if we're not in it, no one's going to be in it. So that's, you know, my real wish to everyone that's listening, that go off there and try to do something, try to create impact, do something good for society, because no one else is going to. Now,
Thank you so much. Kate.
Yeah, I just wanted to, I know that we're at time to just say thank you to everyone for your insightful questions, and also say that you're very welcome to reach out to me via LinkedIn if you didn't ask a question today and would like to ask it or just need some advice. I would be more than happy to help.
Great, thank you so much. Now we have just a couple of announcements, super important, and then we're wrapping up. First of all, I would like to thank the participants today. This was a very, very amazing first event of our Global Alumni Week, which we'll see globally other 3 events. The next one is tomorrow, and it's with Professor Constanza Casquinho from Nova, and with Jana, Sydney Alto and FGV alumna. And we are going to be talking about mental health and how we can have impacts and purpose throughout understanding oneself. 1 p.m., 1 o'clock tomorrow, CEST time. And then again, just a quick thank you to our 3 amazing guests today for sharing these precious insights for us. A big thank you to Melissa for taking the lead on organizing this amazing Global Alumni Week, and also a special mention to Laura Bianchi, SBR from Bocconi University, that has been playing a fundamental role. So thank you so much, everyone, and hope to see you again soon. And also another important announcement about London. We are going to have, during the London graduation, the annual event, and it's going to be the 35th year anniversary of the CEMS Global Alliance in Management Education, of course. So save the date, 6th to the 9th of December, if I'm not mistaken. And yeah, hope to see you also soon in London with a lot of alumni. Thank you so much.